What strikes you as different between these eyes of a chimpanzee and these eyes of a human being? You'll likely notice that while the irises of our primate cousins are similar to ours, our human eyes have evolved to be white in the surrounding area, called the sclera, which in the chimpanzee eyes is dark. But why? One theory posits that the whites of our eyes are primarily to aid in nonverbal communication. The high contrast between the white sclera and the dark iris makes it easy to see, even at a distance, in what direction another human is gazing, and therefore in what direction we might want to gaze too, if we're to silently avoid a saber-toothed rhinoceros creeping up from behind, or to catch a woolly antelope that might make a good meal. Researchers have shown that no other primate species reacts to changes in eye gaze direction the way Homo sapiens do. For the chimpanzee, until another chimpanzee changes gaze by moving his or her entire head, he has no notion that any information is being communicated. Only one other species on the planet is known to follow human eye gaze. The dog, who's learned through 14,000 years of evolution alongside us that eye movement might communicate danger or food. By and large, Homo sapiens are alone in the complex ways we communicate information. Those complexities are exactly what make us human. Humans began using spoken language to communicate in the form we're accustomed to around 70 to 100,000 years ago. And how long after that did it take for us to start telling stories? Well, anthropologists believe it took no time at all. As soon as humans began speaking to each other, we began telling stories. It wasn't until about 40,000 years ago that we have the first evidence of humans communicating in visual representations. This is when the first cave paintings appear. And it wasn't until about 5,000 years ago that humans invented anything we might call written text, engraved symbols in stone called cuneiform. That means for as much as about 95,000 years, the vast majority of human storytelling was done with the mouth and the ears. In every human group on Earth, oral storytellers played crucial roles. Without books or libraries, they passed down cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. Without laws, contracts, or constitutions, they brought to life heroes who exemplified the values that their culture held important. Without instruction manuals, oral storytellers offered narratives in which the listener could safely practice solving potentially dangerous problems without actually having to live through the danger itself. Because repetition and rhyme aid our memory, many of the oldest stories we know of were long, epic poems. We also happen to find repeated sounds and rhythms to be pleasing and entertaining, perhaps because they mimic the natural rhythms of our bodies, like the circulation system. Modern neurological research has shown that when we hear or read a story, the exact same areas of our brain become active as if we were experiencing the event firsthand. Listen to a story about a hero in danger, and your palms may become wet or your heart rate may increase. When you're hungry, read a story or see an advertisement including some tasty food, and your stomach may grumble. In the context of oral and written stories, when we say the word literature, we're talking specifically about written text. One of the first major works of literature is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which came from Sumer, a region in modern-day Iraq. Although the Epic of Gilgamesh was written down in Sumerian cuneiform, that engraved writing we saw earlier, about 4,000 years ago, we know it was likely conveyed as an oral story for a long time before that. The character Gilgamesh is a cruel king who, through his conquest of evil monsters and with help from his sidekick Enkidu, learns to be a good king. therefore exemplifying the characteristics that ancient Sumerians believed were important for a good leader. Another early work of literature, the Odyssey, which is attributed to the blind Greek poet Homer, but again was an oral story for generations before it was written down, shares a similar plot to Gilgamesh. A hero, Odysseus this time, with the help of his crew of sailors, vanquishes monsters during his long journey at sea before returning home, transformed by his experiences. A plot is the structure of the action in a story. It's the conflict, tension, discoveries, and resolution faced by a protagonist, the main character in a story around whom our interest centers. In Beowulf, one of the earliest works of English literature, the underlying plot is similar again to both Gilgamesh and the Odyssey. The hero warrior Beowulf and his sailors defeat the monster Grendel and his mother, bringing peace to the kingdom of the Danes, a Germanic tribe who lived in a region of modern-day Denmark. There are plot similarities to many works of literature that originally began as oral stories. The Old Testament's Moses, for example, is a hero who braves a supernatural realm, Mount Sinai, to bring back a reward to humanity, the Ten Commandments from God. In Buddhist traditions, the Buddha enters a supernatural realm beneath the Bodhi tree when he receives the enlightenment of nirvana and brings back the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths to the rest of us here. The same plot underlies the story of Jesus and the story of Muhammad, too. In the mid-20th century, a mythologist named Joseph Campbell identified these plot similarities in human stories across different cultures and different time periods. He summed up the plot in this way. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. Campbell called this plot arc the monomyth, or the hero's journey, and he identified other details that seemed consistent in story after story told by humans, a common plot that held the interest of generation after generation of homo sapiens, that brought insight in story after story. And this common plot didn't end with our earliest works of oral stories. It repeats itself in many of our epics today, from The Lord of the Rings to Star Wars to Harry Potter, to the superhero movies that reflect our cultural values of good and evil. Why, we may ask ourselves, what benefit do these story elements taken together provide both to audiences in the 21st century and, for all we know, to our human ancestors sitting around the fire 100,000 years ago? Why, in the first place, should something like stories, things that on the surface seem to be simply moments of entertainment or escapes from reality, turn out to be so important to the evolution of our species and to our everyday lives? Consider questions like these in the next story you hear, read, or watch. Consider them on your TV screen, in your church, in the news, and in the stories you tell to other people.